Welcome to another episode of Death Kiss Traveler, the podcast that explores the history, uncovers the horror, and delves into the haunted stories of the places you love. Today we take a journey back to the 1970s to explore Disney's first water park, River Country. Opened in 1976 and closed in 2001, River Country's story is one of innovation, tragedy, and mystery. My name is Marissa, your morbidly curious host, and I want to thank you for supporting this podcast. Each week, these episodes are being listened to around the world. And if you enjoy this podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I put new episodes out every Friday. Follow me on TikTok or Instagram at Death Kiss Traveler Podcast. I will post videos and photos of each episode, and let's discuss them together. As summer comes to a close, we end it with one more day at a water park. Let's get into our story. In the mid-1970s, Walt Disney World was expanding its horizons. Looking to offer guests more than just theme park attractions, Disney envisioned a rustic, old-fashioned swimming hole, a place reminiscent of Tom Sawyer's adventures. This vision came to life on June 20th, 1976, with the opening of River Country, Disney's first water park. Located near Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground, the park was themed as a natural swimming area, complete with sandy bottom lakes, wooden bridges, rope swings, and boardwalks. Unlike modern water parks that rely heavily on chlorinated pools, River Country utilized water drawn from Bay Lake, which was filtered through a sand filtration system to create a clean, yet natural spring-fed swimming experience. Guests often remarked on how the water felt cool, crisp, and refreshing, very different from traditional pool water. What really set River Country apart was its integration with nature. The sand filtration system, the rock work, and the lush landscaping created a rustic, authentic water park experience that no artificial pool could replicate. Unlike the modern water parks that would follow, River Country made guests feel like they were swimming in a natural spring, not just an attraction built from concrete and chlorine. This is what I've always loved about Disney, is the immersiveness. Even in this water park from 1970s, they wanted you to feel like it was a real rustic swimming hole. River Country was a place where thrills and relaxation coexisted in perfect harmony. A hidden gem tucked beside the pine-fringed shores of Bay Lake. From the moment you stepped into its sandy walkways, you were transported into that rustic, old-time swimming hole, straight from a storybook. At the heart of the park was Whitewater Rapids, a classic water slide that promised adrenaline with every twist and turn. Guests climbed the wooden stairs, the sun warm on their backs, before plunging down the winding chutes that sent them hurling into the cool, sparkling lake. The open-air slides and the sturdy wooden supports made it feel more like an adventure in the wild than a theme park ride. Not far away, the Rebel Railroad water slide. Say that 5 times fast. It carved its own path of excitement. Designed like a log flume, riders raced down steep drops, twisted through curves, and splashed into the lake below. For those seeking something gentler, Cowabunga Bay offered a sprawling, sandy swimming area where the children could splash freely under the watchful eye of lifeguards. Families built sandcastles along the shoreline, dipped their toes into the shallow water, and let the warmth of the sun wash over them. If calm adventure was your style, the Rootin' Tootin' raft rides were a perfect escape. Small rafts drifted lazily along winding waterways, carrying families past gentle waterfalls and shaded groves. Here you could take your time, float at your own pace, and enjoy the soothing rhythm of the river, an oasis of serenity amidst the splashes and shouts from the park. For those craving a touch of old-fashioned adventure, Tom Sawyer's swimming hole beckoned. Rope swings dangled over the water, daring visitors to leap into the sparkling depths below. Tiny waterfalls cascaded over rocky outcroppings, and the naturalistic design made it feel like a secret river waiting to be explored. Every splash here captured the spirit of adventure that Disney wanted River Country to embody. Little ones had their own kingdom too. The Cowabunga Water Playground was a maze of slides, water sprayers, and wooden bridges offered endless entertainment. The scent of pine and sun-warmed water filling the air. And when it was time to rest, the sandbar and picnic areas provided the perfect retreat. Families sprawled on towels or settled into their chairs, the gentle lapping of Bay Lake against the shore setting the soundtrack. Families shared lunches, friends soaked up the sun, and everyone, young or old, could simply be a part of the water, the sand, and the quiet magic of the rustic paradise. River Country wasn't just a water park. It was a story brought to life. A place where every slide, swing, and gentle current invited visitors to step into the world both thrilling and timeless. A shimmering slice of adventure on the edge of Disney World. It was a hot summer day in August 1980, and families were flocking to Disney River Country, eager to splash in the cool, spring-fed water of Bay Lake. Among the visitors that day was an 11-year-old boy from Long Island. Excited and laughing, he joined the other children in the gentle waves of Cowabunga Bay and the rustic charm of Tom Sawyer's swim hole. The water sparkled under the Florida sun, seemingly harmless and refreshing. But beneath the surface lurked something invisible, something deadly. Unbeknownst to anyone, a microscopic organism, Naegleria fowleri, a rare, brain-eating amoeba, was present in the warm waters. Tiny and almost impossible to detect, it had the terrifying ability to travel from the nose to the brain, consuming tissue and causing an infection known as primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. I think that's the biggest word I've ever used. A few days after returning home, the boy began to feel ill. What started as a headache and nausea quickly escalated. Fever, vomiting, and a stiff neck followed. His parents watched helplessly as their child's condition deteriorated with alarming speed. Within a matter of days, the boy slipped into a coma. Doctors fought to save him, but the infection was relentless, leaving his brain ravaged by the microscopic endeavor. Tragically, the boy passed away. News of his death spread quickly. While health authorities could not definitively prove that River Country's water had caused the infection, the connection was plausible enough to spark public alarm. The fact that other children in Florida had also died from the same infection around the same time intensified the fear. Suddenly, the idyllic waters of River Country seemed dangerous, hiding a silent threat beneath their sparkling surface. Disney, of course, continued to operate the park, and they took no responsibility for the boy's death. Though the tragedy left a shadow over the rustic paradise. The death of that young boy served as a grim reminder that even in the most magical places, nature could be unpredictable and sometimes lethal. Despite the tragic incident, Disney's public response was notably restrained. Official statements emphasized that similar infections had occurred in other freshwater lakes and that the park's filtration system was not at fault. Health officials from the Florida Department of Health and the Orange County Health Department echoed these sentiments, attributing the infection to natural occurrences rather than negligence on Disney's part. Internally, Disney was deeply concerned about the potential for negative publicity. The company feared that widespread media coverage of the incident could tarnish the reputation of not just River Country, but all of Walt Disney World. As a result, the company opted for a low-profile approach, avoiding public acknowledgement of the incident beyond the official statements. The strategy of internalizing the issue and downplaying its significance was consistent with Disney's broader approach to crises during that era. The company preferred to manage such situations quietly, aiming to maintain the pristine image of its parks and resorts. In August 1982, tragedy struck again. A 14-year-old boy from New Hampshire was vacationing with his family. Like so many others, he was drawn to the Whitewater Rapids, one of the park's signature attractions. Guests rode the surging currents of Bay Lake, tumbling and splashing their way through a watery course before plunging into the lake below. But in the chaos of rushing water, the boy slipped beneath the surface. Due to the murkiness of the filtered lake water, he wasn't immediately visible and was pulled from the water roughly 5 minutes after entering it. Lifeguards dove in, whistles pierced the humid Florida air. They dragged him out and attempted CPR on the sandy banks as horrified families looked on. Despite desperate efforts, the boy could not be revived. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. The laughter that had filled River Country only moments earlier was replaced by screams and sobs. For Disney, it was a devastating blow. The death of a teenager at the happiest place on earth was the kind of tragedy that could tarnish the carefully maintained image of family fun and safety. Yet the park stayed open, and the incident was quietly filed away, absorbed into the growing but hushed list of River Country's casualties. The boy's family pursued legal action against Disney, arguing that the park failed to adequately warn visitors about water depths at the slide's end. The court awarded them $375,000. And the shadows grew darker 7 years later. Another August, 1989. Another boy, this time 13 years old from Florida, visited River Country with his friends. The day was blazing hot, the perfect excuse to dive into Bay Cove, the park's main swimming lagoon. Like so many kids before him, he leapt into the cool green water, ready for adventure. But in an instant, the fun turned deadly. He vanished beneath the surface and didn't come back up. He was found 15 minutes later by another guest stepping on his lifeless body at the bottom of the murky lake, eyes scanning the water for any sign of the boy. Panic rippled across the park as minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, they pulled him from the water, but it was too late. Despite immediate medical attention, the boy was pronounced dead. 2 drownings, 7 years apart, both boys, teenagers in their prime of their lives, both dying in a park meant to be a summer paradise. Disney faced lawsuits, questions about safety, and an uncomfortable truth. River Country was not as safe as it seemed. By the late 1980s, the whispers around River Country had grown even louder. The amoeba scare of 1980, now joined by multiple drownings, painted the park as something far darker than Disney wanted to admit. For some, the rustic waters no longer felt magical. They felt cursed. By the late 1990s, River Country had grown tired. What once was a jewel of Walt Disney World in 1976 now looks small and outdated compared to the sprawling water parks that had followed in its wake. Blizzard Beach had opened in 1995 with gleaming slides, wave pools, and advanced filtration systems. Typhoon Lagoon had been dazzling guests since 1989. Against these titans, River Country, with its rustic ropes, sandy shores, and lake-fed swimming holes, looked like a relic from another age. But the decline wasn't just cosmetic. Beneath the surface, River Country was fighting battles it couldn't win. Parents became wary of letting their little kids swim in natural water, especially when safer chlorine-filled alternatives were just across Disney property. In 2001, a shift in Florida's health regulations made River Country's problems impossible to ignore. The state introduced new requirements for water parks, mandating fully treated water systems for public attractions. Bay Lake, no matter how much Disney filtered it, didn't qualify. For Disney to keep River Country compliant, they would have to overhaul the entire park, installing massive, modern filtration systems, rebuilding the pools, and essentially stripping away the natural swimming hole identity that defined it. The price tag was enormous, and by then, Disney had two bigger, more profitable water parks, pulling in millions of visitors each year. The summer of 2001 came and went. With River Country operating as usual, guests still swung from the ropes into the lake, still slid down the old wooden chutes, still built sandcastles on the beaches. But behind the scenes, the decision had already been made. River Country closed its gates at the end of the season in September 2001. At first, Disney called it seasonal closure. Many assumed it would reopen in the spring, as it had for decades. But spring came and went, and the gates never reopened. By 2005, Disney quietly confirmed what many had already suspected. River Country was closed for good. When people talk about River Country's demise, they usually point to Florida's updated water regulations in the early 2000s. By 2005, Disney quietly confirmed what many had already suspected. River Country was closed for good. For Disney, it was a numbers game. Why pour money into updating a small rustic park when larger, more profitable ones were thriving? River Country could only accommodate about 4,700 guests per day at maximum capacity, tiny compared to the tens of thousands who could flood into Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard Beach. Unlike Disney's other shuttered attractions, Disney never tore River Country down, at least not right away. For years it sat there by Bay Lake, a ghostly ruin in the heart of Walt Disney World. The slides grew covered in vines, the rope swings dangled over the water still, and the once bustling sandy beaches lay empty, haunted by silence. Urban explorers and Disney diehards whispered about sneaking in, documenting the eerie remains of the world's most famous abandoned water park. River Country had died, not in one catastrophic moment, but slowly, quietly drowned by time, regulation, and the shadow of its tragedies that had marked its waters. And for nearly 2 decades, River Country sat in silence. Only the sound of cicadas and the lapping Bay Lake remained. Nature crept in, swallowing the park whole. Wooden planks warped with rot, slides cracked and sun-bleached. Rope swings hung like limp, forgotten nooses. Guests riding the ferry across Bay Lake would sometimes steal a glimpse through the trees, catching shadows of a place Disney never spoke about again. To some it was eerie, to others it was sacred, a memory suspended in time. The sandy beaches turned wild with weeds. The bright blue paint of its water playgrounds faded into ghostly shades of gray. And yet, people swore the park wasn't entirely empty. Cast members working night shifts at Fort Wilderness told quiet stories. They said that on still nights, you could hear splashing in Bay Lake where no one is swimming, or the sound of the rope swing creaking, though it hadn't been touched in years. Some swore they heard laughter, children's laughter, drifting across the water long after midnight. Urban explorers who dared to sneak inside described a heavy silence, the kind that presses down on you, making every step echo louder than it should. Some claimed they felt watched, as if the park itself remembered them. A few even swore they heard faint announcements, ghostly echoes of long silent speakers. For fans, River Country became more than just a closed park. It became a legend, a place of fun and tragedy, now sitting in limbo, a ghost on Bay's Lake shore. And if you ask the right cast member, one who's worked at Fort Wilderness long enough, they might lean in and whisper, River Country never closed. The water still moves. The children still laugh. And at night, if you listen closely, you can still hear the park breathe. And if you were staying at Fort Wilderness in those years, or maybe out on the lake in a rented boat, you might have noticed something strange. Even though the gates were locked and no one was inside, the music never stopped. River Country had always leaned into a down-home American feel, banjos, fiddles, and a little bit of twang to set the mood. And long after the swimmers were gone, those same cheerful songs kept drifting out across the water. Imagine it, a ghostly banjo tune, bouncing through the night air, echoing off abandoned water slides. Some say it was just Disney being Disney, leaving the audio loops running maybe to keep the silence from drawing attention to the dead park. Others claim it was a mistake, wires forgotten in the shuffle of a quick closure, but to guess who heard it, it felt like something else. Because there was a certain loneliness in that music, a sense that River Country wasn't ready to be forgotten, that it was still alive. In some small way, the laughter was gone, the slides were empty, but the songs kept playing as if the park itself couldn't let go. And for more than a decade, those ghostly banjos played on, the soundtrack to a swimming hole that time and Disney had abandoned. But in 2018, the silence was broken. Heavy machinery rolled in across the sandy banks. Chainsaws cut through the vines that had become guardians of the old water park. And the demolition began. The once beloved slides were torn apart, piece by piece. Pools that had held generations of laughter were drained into mud. The rustic cabins, the sandy beaches, the last remains of Tom Sawyer's swim hole, all of it reduced to rubble. Disney promised something new, a shimmering resort called Reflections, a Disney lakeside lodge. But fate had other plans. By 2020, construction halted. The world itself paused, and River Country's land became something stranger than abandonment. It was no longer a forgotten water park, nor a thriving new resort. It was nothing, a cleared expanse. For years, that land where River Country once stood remained quiet. The slides were gone, the pools filled in, but the earth itself seemed to hold its breath waiting. Guests riding across Bay Lake would glance at the shoreline and wonder what would rise from the ashes of Disney's first water park. By 2024, the silence had been broken again. The hum of machinery replaced the chirping of crickets, and the gentle lapping of water was drowned out by the clang of steel and the groan of cranes. The side of River Country was alive again, not with laughter or splashing, but with construction. The new vision? Disney Lakeshore Lodge. Originally promised years ago as Reflections, but in 2024, the work resumed, and Disney gave it a new name, a new identity, a new purpose. Today, towering frames rise against the tree line. Windows glint in the Florida sun from the beaches of Fort Wilderness or the balconies of Wilderness Lodge. Guests can watch the future take shape. This won't just be a resort, it'll be a hybrid. Part Disney Vacation Club, part traditional hotel. A place inspired by natural beauty of the wilderness that surrounds it, yet infused with Disney's signature storytelling. Plans hint at treehouse-style suites hidden in the canopy, A-frame cabins along the water's edge, and a bayou restaurant bringing the Princess and the Frog to life on the shores of Bay Lake. River country may be gone, but its spirit, the blend of nature, adventure, and nostalgia, lives on in the soil beneath Disney's Lakeshore Lodge. They say the tragedies left a mark. The boy who contracted the amoeba in 1980. The teenagers who drowned in 82 and 89. They didn't just vanish. The water remembers them. The laughter of children mingled with the echo of loss, creating a kind of haunting rhythm that never truly left. So if you're brave, or foolish enough, to wander near Bay Lake after dark, listen carefully. You might think it's just your imagination. You might tell yourself it's the wind through the trees. But if you hear the splash of a rope swing, or the faintest giggle behind you, maybe river country hasn't really left at all. Thank you for listening to Death Kiss Traveler. Next week starts spooky season, and I am giving you ghost stories that you have never heard of before. This podcast is written by me, Marissa, produced by Sun-Kissed Traveler. Are you looking for a vacation? Visit sun-kissedtraveler.com. Link in show notes.